4 years on end, each penny saved was like a seed planted with hope. Amps abdicated small pleasures, squeezed his belt even hurts and turned dreams into concrete goals, all to offer parents, both with serious physical limitations, a dignified home in the city, far from the deprivation of rural life. The key to those dreams materialized in bricks and cement should open the doors of a new life. But by crossing the threshold of what would be her greatest triumph, she found not the gratitude she deserved, but a betrayal that hurt more than any sacrifice. Good night, listeners. I am Andre Branco, and you are in Family Mazes, the podcast that unravels the invisible webs woven between four walls. Today I bring a real story that proves how the ambition of some can crush the dreams of others, and how silence is sometimes the greatest accomplice of injustice. A was not the type that bowed to the circumstances. When she met Mark, son of Inna Glebovna, a woman whose name sounded like a sentence in her own home, she was already carrying the weight of an unusual determination on her back. The mother-in-law, a former teacher of an elite school, had looked at the girl from top to bottom the first time she saw her and sentenced, without half words, a simple peasant, which only serves to cook borscht. The command here is me. And so it was. Inna ruled the home with iron hand, and everyone, husband, son, potential daughters-in-law, danced according to the song she chose. However, it was not naive. He knew that living in his mother-in-law's house was to change a cage for another, but he accepted the invitation without blinking when Inna decreed, "I will not allow my son to live in a rented cubicle, eating anything." In fact, there was no choice. With Mark earning a modest salary as a programmer and still in formation as a nurse, dreaming of becoming a doctor, renting a property was luxury unreachable. But she had a plan. A plan that would require years of deprivation, clear nights, and a steel discipline. While Inna controlled every penny spent in the supermarket and required explanations for every minute away from home, where was it? "My son is hungry." Amps worked folded. Exhaustive shifts at the clinic during the day, night shifts in the hospital in default of mother-in-law, who believed they were overtime in the same function. Each real saved was a brick in building a better future. Not to her and Mark, as everyone thought, but to Sergei and Tamara, her parents. He, amputated after an accident on the farm, she, blinded by diabetes complications, both attached to a house that crumbled along with her strength. 40 kilometers to the nearest hospital, snow-blocked roads in winter. Life in the field had become a slow death sentence. 3 years. 1,090-5 days of veiled humiliation, his mother-in-law's disdain, empty promises of her husband, who swore in secret, "We'll soon have our house." 3 years in which swallowed pride, silent exhaustion, and kept each coin as if it were gold. Until, finally, the miracle, a 2-bedroom apartment, ground floor to facilitate the mobility of the father, near pharmacies, markets, and a health unit. Everything your parents needed to survive with dignity. "Mark, I found the apartment," she announced, shaking with emotion. "Tomorrow I give the entrance." The husband smiled, relieved. "Great. Let's tell my mother, she'll be glad we'll leave her home." The answer from Amps was a punch in the stomach. "It's not for us. It's for my parents." The silence that followed was eloquent. Mark, used to sailing between the turbulent waters of his mother and wife, knew nothing to say. There was no enthusiasm, no revolt, just the resignation of those who prefer not to choose side. The following months were febrile preparations. Amps made financial juggling, bought basic furniture, used but functional appliances. Every detail and thought for the comfort of parents. Until the big day arrived. Without warning, she took the car and headed to the countryside, determined to surprise Sergei and Tamara. "Dad, Mother, get your things. Today you get a new home." The mother's tears and her father's tight hug were the reward for years of sacrifice. "Daughter, you destroyed yourself for us," murmured Tamara, touching her daughter's emained face. "It doesn't matter. Now you'll be safe." But fate, cruel, had reserved another surprise. When opening the door of the apartment, his apartment, paid with sweat and tears, arm frozen. Inna's massive sofa dominated the room. The balance armchair, a family inheritance, occupied a corner. In the old buffet, the mother-in-law arranged her porcelain with the naturalness of those who were always there. "They arrived finally," said Inna, without even lifting her eyes, the tone loaded with disdain. Mark told me that they bought a property. I decided it was time to move. I got tired of putting together you at my house. Armvest turned to her husband, who avoided her gaze, holding a box like a shield. Mark, explain. The broken but firm voice. Mom decided that she needs space. She thinks we run out, he stammered her eyes spiked on the floor. But this house is from my parents. 3 years working like a slave, 2 jobs, no vacation, without rest, all for them. Inna laughed, a dry sound. Your parents survive well in the fields. No. I need tranquility. Mark's silence was the final knife. A knew that empty look, the curved posture of those who prefer to hide to face. Sergei, backed by the crutch, shook his head, desolate. Tamara, lost in that environment that should be his refuge, whispered, "Daughter, maybe we will better come back." "No. Cut a season," the voice now a tempered steel. "This house is yours. And I won't give up now. The battle was just beginning. I bought it for you." The line was drawn with a sharp clarity. Amps turned to the mother-in-law, cold eyes like ice on a winter lake. "Inna Glebovna, I ask you to collect your things and leave this apartment. Now." A dry laugh escaped the woman's thin lips. "What? You're kidding, girl? I've established me here and I have no intention of leaving." Inna Glebovna's fingers nailed the armchair's arms, like claws marking territory. Arm did not blink. His gaze slid to Mark, who shrunk under that scrutinium, his falling shoulders, his eyes fleeing. "Mark." His name sounded like a sentence. "Last time, are you going to say something or keep silent like a cloth doll?" He just shrugged, a pathetic, almost childish gesture. "Amps. Maybe your parents can stay with us for a while. Your mother really needs a place of their own." It was the drop that overflowed the glass. Something inside Arm broke, not with a snap, but with a deaf noise, like that of a bone breaking under slow and relentless pressure. 3 years. 3 years of exhaustive shifts, jumped meals, delayed dreams. 3 years saving each currency, supporting disdain looks, acid comments, the daily humiliation of being treated as an intruder in life itself. And now, his victory was trampled without ceremony, as if it was just a cheap whim. A glacial calm came down on her. "Understood." The voice came out, almost serene. The fingers shivered slightly as she unlocked her cell phone, but the determination in her eyes did not hesitate. "Igor Viktorovich. Good afternoon. Here is a Sergeyevna, from the clinic. Remember our conversation about the apartment?" "Yes, exactly that." A pause. "A problem has appeared. I need you. Now. Asterisk. Inna Glebovna watched the scene with a mocking smile. "And who did you call, her?" "The police. Do you think they will drag me from here?" Her tone was of triumph, as if she already saw her daughter-in-law bowing to her will. "No." Amps kept the cell phone in his pocket, the curved lips but something that was not a smile. "I called a lawyer. One who is also a private and former police detective. I consulted him before signing the papers of this house." Mark began to move restlessly, passing the weight from one foot to another. "Amp, let's solve this in peace. We already tried," she cut, dry. "You chose your side. Now I choose mine." 20 minutes later, the doorbell sounded. At the door, an imposing figure, Igor Viktorovich Samilov, the lawyer. Impeccable costume, erect posture, a look that had already seen too much to be impressed by family dramas. "Good morning," greeted, the eyes sweeping the environment with surgical accuracy. "What do we have here?" A explained. "Brief. It needs." Without thrilling. The lawyer heard, nodded, and then turned to Inna Glebovna. "Lady, this property was acquired by Aunt Sergeyevna with personal resources earnings before and during marriage, but exclusively in her name. The documents make it clear, it is very particular, not marital heritage. She has every right to dispose of him as he understands. But my son is her husband." He ran into Inna Glebovna, the red face of indignation. "Everything should be common." "The law disagrees," answered Igor, impassive. "Spouses can have exclusive goods." And this dash he has raised a folder with copies is from a Sergeyevna. His gaze slid to Mark. Young, you are illegally on a property of others, trying to exercise control over it. This constitutes a violation of home. A calculated pause. Article 139 of the Penal Code, by the way. Mark paled. But I am the husband dash. Who has no right on this property, concluded the lawyer, closing the folder with a snap. You have two options, he told her fingers, as if explaining to stubborn children. Either they go out voluntarily, taking their things, or I call the police now to register the invasion. And I have contacts at the prosecution that they would love to analyze this case. The cell phone was already in his hand. Inna Glebovna snorted, her hands flying in theatrical gestures. This is absurd. Mark, don't listen to this curl, he is intimidating us. Not at all, corrected Igor, quiet. I'm just clarifying the legal situation. His finger stopped on the screen. Let's call the car or solve civilly. Mark looked at his mother. Then, to Ampand for the first time, he truly turned it. The same stubborn eyes as the father, the same hard line of the mouth, the erect spine as a spear. Something on your chest must have hurt. Mom. I think we better go, murmured, the voice broken. Tractor. Subicated Inna Glebovna, but was already starting to add her things with sudden movements. Half an hour later, the apartment was free. Igor helped to write a term signed by Mark and the mother-in-law renouncing any claim on the property. When the door was finally closed behind them, Amps allowed to breathe. Then he turned to his parents. Tamara Ivanovna traveled the rooms with slow steps, the fingers caressing the newly hopped walls, the empty cabinets waiting for their things. Daughter. How beautiful, he whispered, the embargoed voice. And so, ours. Sergei Nikolaevich, supported by the crutch, examined the strategic handrails, the wide doors, the absence of steps. He thought of everything, he said, his throat tight. Even in the details I didn't even know I needed. Igor, when he said goodbye, he held the hand of Arm for a moment. You know, it's not every day that someone is willing to fight for yours. If you need anything else, call. That night, as he helped his mother tidy up the flower vessels in the window, the doorbell sounded again. Mark was at the door, hands in his pockets, his face a mask of uncertainty. Can I come in? Amps retreated silently, letting him pass. I wanted to apologize, he started, his eyes fixed to the floor. With you. With your parents. I should have prevented my mother. She didn't have the right dash. And you had the right. What to silence? Asked Arm, the cold voice. 3 years of nights in clear. 3 years of swallowed humiliation. 3 years dreaming of that home, and he knew. You knew, he accused. I knew and let her do that. I knew, but I didn't think she was so far away. His voice failed. She said she needed a place, that we should help her. I don't. I couldn't say no. You can never, found a bitter. For her, you are eternal. For me, it has never been. He reached out, touching his shoulder with a shyness that no longer moved her. I love you, Amp. Come on, start over. It's late. She retreated, as if that touch burned. Today I saw who you are. And I realized that I no longer want to be your wife. Are you leaving me? He babbled, his eyes wide. No. Amps shook his head, a deep sadness replacing anger. I'm freeing you. Go back to your mother, Mark. A sigh. You have never been my real. The tranquility now reigned where there were only storms before. And they would always be there to cultivate it. 5 years later, the celebration of the new home was already in a family of 4. Aina and Maxim followed her daughter, Polika, through the halls of the house, while laughs and voices intertwined in the air. The garden overflowed from guests, colleagues from the clinic, friends that life presented them after the battle, neighbors who became almost relatives. Sergei Nikolaevich, now with his health recovered and his firm step, displayed his orchard with the pride of those who reap not only fruits, but also the reward of years of dedication. Tamara Ivanovna, in turn, distributed her famous pyro with the generosity of who knows that food is just an excuse to nourish souls. When the last laugh fell on the night and the parents retreated to their corner of the house, there and Maxim were alone on the porch, wrapped in the starry cloak of the sky. The silence between them was as full as the words they had already exchanged. "Do you know?" she murmured, her fingers playing with the edge of the glass of wine. "Sometimes I think that episode with the apartment was the best thing that could have happened. If my mother-in-law had not tried to steal me that, maybe I was still stuck to Mark, swallowing humiliations, never discovering that life could be like this. Sometimes you need to lose something to win everything." Maxim pulled her closer, the chin backed by her hair. "And truth. But what impresses me most is how, at that moment, you not only resisted it but found the right words and the right people. As if always knew the way." Aina smiled, her eyes shining with the starlight, or maybe with something older, more of her. "I just did what anyone would do to protect those who love. A break. And do you know one thing? Fire all over again. Without hesitation." From there, they saw the bright garden, where fireflies danced in the hot air of the night. Somewhere in the back of the house, Polish slept, breathing soft. At the other extreme, his parents rested, safe, surrounded by the care that had been denied for so long. Sometimes, Aina still remembered that day, the day she arrived with her parents to the new home and found her mother-in-law, fervent and triumphant, rearranging her home furniture. At the time, it seemed the end of the world. Today, I saw that as it was, not a collapse, but a deviation. One of those cruel turns of fate that, in the end, only exist to push us toward what we really deserve. And there she was. Exactly where it should always have been.